If you remember Vine, you'll remember that it was like the kingpin of video back in the day. If you remember Twitter in its earliest days, you'll know that it was a paradise for developers. What do you get when you put one of the best video apps of all time with the golden days of Twitter? What is up, everyone? In this tutorial, we are going to be building a Vine clone on Farcaster protocol. Before we get started, let me introduce myself. My name is Kelly. I am the Developer Evangelist here at Pinata. I got started in my Web3 dev journey just over a year ago, and actually Pinata was one of the first ever tools I used to build my decentralized app. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm also very excited to take you through this awesome project. Let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, if this is your first time crossing paths with Pinata, I want to give a brief intro to exactly who Pinata is and what we do. So Pinata is the #1 solution for the IPFS protocol. We provide Web3 companies with the tools they need to build a community-first business. How do we do this? We do this by handling the complexities of media storage and distribution on IPFS. The analogy that I really love to use is if you think of IPFS as a massive monolithic piece of bread, like a big loaf, Pinata is like the sliced bread version of that. So we make it faster, easier, tastier to use and consume IPFS. So that's kind of my summary of Pinata. If you want more info, please head to our website at www.pinata.cloud or hit us up on Twitter at PinataCloud. So real quick, I'm going to break down the second half of this project. We are building on the Farcaster protocol. So what is Farcaster? Why is everyone talking about it? And why are we excited here at Pinata? So essentially, Farcaster is an open protocol for social networks. So if you think about centralized platforms like Twitter and Facebook, what they don't do is that they don't offer users a direct relationship with their audience. Farcaster does. And number two, on Farcaster, developers can build freely on the protocol since it is open and it has data available for everyone to use. In this respect, Farcaster is sufficiently decentralized. I'm not going to go in depth into what this means, but I would highly recommend jumping over to the website at www.farcaster.xyz to read a little more about the underlying ethos behind this protocol and why it's so cool. So in today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to create a Vine clone or video app on Farcaster using Next.js, Alchemy, and of course IPFS with Pinata. Firstly, a quick shout out to Justin, aka Polluter of Minds, aka the Vice President of Product at Pinata and the mastermind behind this project. He is just one of the smartest people I've ever met. I highly recommend just following his work. He's also got a new Substack, so if you want to read quality writing, get into it. Another note is that all the code you see in this tutorial today is available on Justin's GitHub repo, Polluter of Minds, and then you go into Farcaster Vine tutorial. Secondly, if you're a written tutorial person, head on over to this Medium blog Justin has written. It takes you through step by step on how exactly to deploy this app. Even if you're not a written tutorial person, I highly recommend just going through reading it because it's a nice read. And lastly, if you want to see a snazzed up functional product from this tutorial, get on to getabsorb.com. So this is actually live and people like me who are on Farcaster are posting videos to it right now. So yeah, all these links will be available in the video description, so head on over and take what you wish. I also want to pre-position this tutorial with a few caveats. So we utilize Farcaster as it is at the time of this recording. So currently it is invite only, a single storage hub with open data. So if you want an invite, just head on over to Twitter and DM Dan Romero at DWR. I don't know how he does it. His DMs are probably flooded, but you will get a response. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so it's time for our first check-in. By now you should be able to answer the following questions. What is Pinata? What is Farcaster? what are we building, and you should also have some caveats to keep in mind. I also want to know how everyone is feeling, so please comment below with an emoji that shows your mood. Maybe if you're hungry, you can comment with a taco emoji. If you're cold in winter, comment with a frosty face. Whatever it is, I want to know. And while you're doing that, I'm going to play this video of some. Okay, so some final housekeeping. I'm going to be going through some prerequisites that you'll need for this tutorial. Number one is, of course, a Farcaster account if you want to properly test it out at the end. Like I said, you can hit up Dan Romero on Twitter at DWR for an invite link. And don't forget to mention that Pinata sent you here to make a video app. Number two is an Ethereum wallet. Just a quick note on this. So if you already have a wallet like MetaMask that you use for most things, I recommend downloading a new one just for the purposes of deploying apps on Farcaster. So for example, I chose to download and set up a Rainbow wallet on mobile. It just makes things easier, and there's a certain way that you can import your seed phrase from Farcaster onto this account. And thirdly, we are using Next.js for our front end. So as long as you have Node.js like this and the Node package manager, you should be in good shape to just go ahead and quickly download that to your computer. You'll also need a Pinata account, of course, as well as a Pinata API key. So let me quickly take you through how to do that. If you already have an account and you already have an API key, or you know how to get one, you can skip this part. But for anyone who's new, let's go over to Pinata's website. If you don't have an account ready, you can go and sign up. This is the sign up page. It'll just ask you for your email and a few prompts. Otherwise, you can go straight to login. So in my case, I already have an account. I'm going to quickly go and log in. Let's close that. You will see something different, obviously. This is the dashboard. This is where all my pinned files are. To make a new API key, you can go to developers. And I've already got a few keys here, but you basically just go new key, admin access, yes, and then you can create a new key. You can name it. I'm going to name mine Vine Farcaster 1 because I already have Vine Farcaster. So you go ahead and create that. You copy everything here, and you'll want to keep everything in one place. So for the purposes of this tutorial, we'll just be using the JWT, which is the secret access token, but I just recommend keeping everything in one place. You can chuck it in something like a password manager or just in like a secure notes. That's usually what I do, but it's up to you. Another note is that you can get by with a free plan with Pinata, but I do recommend getting a paid plan just because that way you'll be filtering everything through your dedicated gateway, so it won't be on the public gateway. So everything is just cleaner, faster, and you'll get a better user experience. So if I go here, these are sort of the different types of plans offered right now. And the final prerequisite for this tutorial will be an Alchemy account, as well as an Alchemy API key. And you'll need this so that you can create an Ethereum app on the Girly testnet. We use a testnet because we don't want to actually waste like real money on creating like a practice tutorial. So let me just go over and show you real quick how to create one. So if you don't have an Alchemy account already, just go to alchemy.com and go sign up. Otherwise, you can go sign in. I already have an account. Just wait for this to load. Then if you go to apps, you just go to create app. Here you can name your app. So I'm going to name mine Fine. And then in your description you could say my second Farcaster app project. And here you'll want to do the Ethereum chain and then just go over to Girly. Go create app. And voila. There's your app. You should be able to see it down here already. And then you can view your key, edit app, do whatever you want. Yay, so it's finally time to get into the code. Before I get coding, I do want to walk you through a roadmap, just like how no one would send you to a place you've never been without Google Maps. So firstly, we want to connect the app to an Ethereum-based wallet provider. So the Farcaster protocol actually runs on the Ethereum blockchain, and it uses a mix of layer 1 and layer 2 networks to sort of manage identities and updates between users. The second thing we want to do is we want to fetch data from the Farcaster protocol. So remember how I told you that all data on the Farcaster protocol is open, so this allows us to fetch that data. Number 3, we want to post or pin that media to Pinata. And number 4, we want to render videos through an IPFS gateway. So just wanted to remind you that the paid plan of Pinata allows for a seamless video streaming option just because you have your own dedicated gateway. All right, cool. So let's get into the code. Alright, so by now you should have all the required keys, tools, and prerequisites to get going and get some code in. As mentioned, we are using Next.js for our front end. So basically Next.js is an integrated React front end and serverless backend framework. What we're going to be using the backend for is things like uploading videos and deleting them and things like that. So let's go ahead and initialize the repo. So firstly, navigate into the directory that you want. So in my case, I keep everything in a folder called Paradise Projects. These are like where all my fun projects live. So I don't have much in here. I've just been playing around with the exact same tutorial. But okay, let's go ahead and clear that. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna run npx create next app. The name of the app. So I'm gonna name mine Farcaster Vine 1, just like my API key, because I already have one called Farcaster Vine. Make sure you have Node.js installed as well as npm, as mentioned. And yeah, just go ahead and click enter. Let's go, yes. Yes. Cool. And now we wait. Cool. Let's go ahead and clear that. So if you check now, we have this repo created on our local drive. Okay, so now we'll need a few more dependencies, so let's go ahead and set them up. I actually already have what we need to put in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy all that in. And while these are installing, I'll go ahead and explain exactly what we are installing here. So firstly is the Pinata SDK, obviously. We're also going to install the Farcaster.js SDK for connecting to Farcaster protocol. We've got some things from the Ethers project. So the Ethers project is a JavaScript library that has all of your Ethereum needs. WAGMI has all the React hooks that you'll need to connect to your Ethereum wallet. Axios is the JavaScript library that we use to make the HTTP requests to get our files. And lastly, Formidable, you can see here. Yeah, this is what we use for parsing form data in our case. And for this app, we're going to be parsing data from video uploads. So that's what these are. And cool, you should see this. No problems here. Everything is installed. In this tutorial, we will be using Tailwind CSS. We'll be keeping it super simple because styling is not the objective of this tutorial. There's already enough to worry about. So I'm gonna quickly cd into the repo that we just created. Let me show you exactly what's in here. So you'll see everything in here already. So let's go ahead and install Tailwind. So you go Tailwind CSS, post CSS, glitter prefixer. Cool. Just wait for that to install. Alright, awesome. And then we're gonna go ahead and npx Tailwind CSS init p. Right, what you should see is this. So create a Tailwind CSS config file and then create a post CSS config file. So if you ls into here, you'll see that there's 2 new folders. Cool, so now that that's done, let's go ahead and open it up in the code editor of our choice. In my case, I use VS Code because I think it's the best. So here we are. Here's what we have in our current repo. Cool, so now that we're in here, we're gonna go over to this tailwind.config.js file that was just created, and you're going to change the content array to look like this. Let me just copy and paste it. There we go. Cool. So basically pages, you're going to add all these extensions as well as 2 components so that it's compatible. Cool. And now we're going to go over to the globals.css file. So if you go into source, styles, and then go into globals.css, there's already some stuff in here. You can just Control A and delete everything and replace it with Tailwind, like so. Okay, so before we make a stop at the first checkpoint of our roadmap, we're going to go ahead and create a .env file so that we don't forget later on. And what this file does is it stores all of your environmental variables. So these are things like your API keys and your private keys. You can store them in here so that, one, they're not pushed to your public repo, in that you can keep them safe while you can still easily refer to them from inside the app. So in your case, you're going to go ahead and say Pinata API key, and then I'm not going to show you my key, but here you can just put your Pinata secret access token. And then you can also do that with your Alchemy key. So here I'm going to put Alchemy API key, like so. So go ahead and put those in. I'm going to put mine in, and I'm just going to stop recording for a while to not show you guys. All right, cool. So now that housekeeping's out of the way, we can head to the first stop of our front-end roadmap, and that is to connect to an Ethereum-based wallet provider. So in order to do this, we're going to navigate back to our VS Code. All right, so now we're at the root of our Farcaster Vine 1 directory. We can jump into source, go into pages, and you'll find an app.tsx file. So this will already be in here, but what we're going to do is we're going to add a few things. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste the code that I have here. So if you can see at the top, we import a few components from WalkMe. So firstly is the WalkMe config. This basically manages the configurations for all React hooks. And then the create client component manages the wallet connection state and also the configuration side of things. And then if we go to configure chains, this helps you to configure with different chains and providers like Alchemy. This way you don't need to worry about defining RPC URLs and configuring those chains manually. And then lastly, we import Girly just because we are building this app on the Ethereum Girly testnet. As you can see here, we import a few providers like Alchemy and the public provider as well. Down here, these 4 things is configuring the app to work with different wallet connectors like MetaMask, Coinbase, and then the rest through like Wallet Connect. So that's what that is. Okay, so things are going to get super exciting now. We're going to go ahead and create some components. So let's navigate to the root of our folder. Just create another folder called components. The first one we're going to create is a feed component. Let's go ahead and import React. Awesome. We'll create a const feed. Okay. And then inside here, we're going to put return. And we create a div with this class. Perfect. And we'll just export that component. Cool. So just as a placeholder, let's put the word feed inside. We're going to come back to this. So moving on to the next. So for our next component, we are going to create a component called header. This is kind of where a lot of the action happens, so it's quite a meaty one. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy pasta what I have in.
If you want, you can go ahead and copy and paste from the written tutorial, or feel free to pause this video and code it in yourself. As you can see, we have a lot of red here, which means we have a lot of work to do still, but let's take it step by step. So firstly is this hard-coded MIME type. What is MIME type? MIME type is the type of media. So in our case, because it's a video app, we have video. And because I'm on Google Chrome, I have WebM. If you're on Brave or Safari or any other browser, you'll probably have MP4. Down here, you'll find all of the states that we're using, and then some hooks that we've imported in. So these are basically to do with wallet functionality. And then if you go down here, we have a use effect React hook in use. So this is a conditional hook that we will trigger when we have an authenticated user. So the media recorder will only get triggered if it is a valid user, so that we don't have any random people recording videos on our app. And then in this const record video, you can see the process of how that media recorder is triggered. So as you can see that we have to check the authentication of the user first, and then we go ahead and fetch that profile. If there is not a valid user profile, we will once again set the authentication model to true. Else we will set the user profile and then trigger the media recorder. If you scroll down a little bit, this is basically where the authentication process with Farcaster begins. Basically everything from here on down is how we interact with the Farcaster protocol. So firstly, we are going to check if we're properly authenticated with check auth. And then we're going to get a new authentication token. After that, we're going to store it into, we're going to get the correct user profile and then store it into local storage. And then if we go down, we basically set the profile to local storage so that users can record, upload, or cancel their video. Cool, so let's move on to the body of our component. We have the name of our app, and then we have a button that basically triggers the record video function. Here, this is basically checking if we need the authentication modal to pop up or not. We're going to create this component next, so we can quickly move on to the next one. Cool, so we've created the header. So go back into the components folder and create a new file called auth modal. TSX, and because I already have this code here, I am going to cheat and just copy and paste it in. So at first glance, you're probably going to see something familiar. Yes, once again, we are using some hooks from WalkMe to help with wallet functionality. So I'm not going to go step by step through this modal, but essentially what the authentication modal does is it checks if the user's wallet is connected. If the user basically triggers a modal that gives them options like MetaMask or Wallet Connect or Coinbase Wallet, things like that, so that they can connect. Cool, so now all of our components are there. They're not done yet, but they are there. So this might be a good time for you to go and take a break. The next part, we're going to see a lot more action. So just to get ready for that, go stretch, have a snack, etc. You're going to need it.
All right, cool. Welcome back, everyone. Now we are going to move on to the next part of this tutorial, which is the most exciting part. We are going to create the file in our code that's going to handle the media recorder functionality. All right, so we're gonna firstly create a folder called utils, and that's in the root of our directory. Inside that folder, we're gonna add a new file called media recorder in camel case .ts. For this code, it's a little complex, so I would recommend going to the written tutorial and grabbing the code and plopping it in. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Sweet. So essentially what's happening in this folder is we are checking if the user has at least one camera. That is the user's device. So if it's your phone, obviously you have two cameras. Your laptop, has at least one camera, so there is probably a very small chance that the user does not have a camera. So within this file, there's a few important aspects I do want to point out. Here, you'll see that it's kind of setting the number of cameras that the device has. And then it's initializing the recorder, which is the camera stream. Here you can see a constraints object. So what this does is it basically, when our camera is active, when the user's camera is active, it narrows down things like the aspect ratio so that the recording view is exactly as you see on Vine, like that vertical narrow screen that you see. This is all constrained by this object here. Okay, so you're probably wondering how the stream process happens. How are we seeing that live video in action on our screen? So in here, you can see that inside the video element, we are essentially grabbing that video from the HTML and then storing it inside the element. And then here, we essentially set the stream as the video element that we got here. Awesome, so let's go back to our header component. Firstly, you'll see that this is no longer red, which is good. And then if you go down here, if you scroll down here, we are only setting the stream up if the record view is true. This is because we need the user to be logged into their Farcaster before we can get recording. So let's go ahead and address once again another one of these red underlines. So go ahead and navigate to your utils and create a file called Farcaster. Oops. Farcaster TS. Go and pull this code from the written tutorial. It'll just make your life much easier. And then let's walk through it real quick. So starting with this function getAuthToken from Farcaster. So what this token does is it takes a signed message from your wallet, turns it into a token, and then it allows you to speak with the storage hub of Farcaster. Remember how I said at this point in time, there's only a single storage hub with the Farcaster protocol. This may change, but at the time of this recording, it is only that one. And moving on to the generate authentication token function. So what this function here does is it creates the initial message that is signed by the wallet. If we hop real quick back over to the header, you'll see this use sign hook from WAGMI. So this essentially triggers a wallet signature from the payload that is created in this generate authentication function. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a fetch profile function. And essentially what this function does is it receives the token from the Farcaster API, and then it allows you to fetch the profile of the person who is logged in. And then last but not least is the fetch feed function. And what this does is it populates your feed with all the posts that are relevant to you as the logged in user. So moving on, that is the farcaster.ts file done. What you'll notice is that a lot of these functions, we need the correct API routes in order for them to work. So we're going to move on and do that now. So if you navigate back into source, go into your pages folder, you'll find a folder called API. We're going to start with the auth endpoint. So go ahead and create a file called auth.ts. All right, so once you've done that, you're going to pop this piece of code in. You can grab this from the tutorial. So let's have a look at what's going on in this file. This API route uses a Farcaster specific SDK. So we're grabbing the Merkle API client from the Farcaster SDK. But if you look down here at our initial post request, you won't see the Merkle API client anywhere. Instead of the Merkle API client, we're actually going to use the signed bearer token that we previously created. And we're going to use that in the post request to generate an authentication token from Farcaster. And then if you see in our GET request, what we're doing here is we're essentially grabbing the token that was generated in our post request, and then we're going to use that to build an API client for Farcaster using the Merkle API client. And then the result we get is essentially all of the profile info of the logged in user. So in the next part of this tutorial, we're actually going to go ahead and create the feed, which is where all the posts come up. But before that, a brief interjection. So there are a few different ways that we can populate our feed using the data from the Farcaster protocol. So the first is direct. So what we can do is, because the protocol has open data, we can grab that data, filter by post for only our video app, and then we return these posts. What is the problem with this? Well, firstly, it's very inefficient. So most likely your server will time out. And yeah, basically that's the problem with grabbing it directly. Then if we move on, the second option is to use an indexer. There are actually indexes built by community members from Farcaster that we could use. So what these indexes do is that they use dedicated servers that constantly updates the database with new posts on the network. But for our tutorial, we're actually going to be doing something much easier, which is we're going to be querying the metadata of each post via Pinata. So for each post that we create on our app, we're adding metadata, and then as we grab it, we're actually querying that metadata and then returning posts that match that metadata that we query for. So hopefully that provided some insight onto how exactly you grab the data from the protocol and then have it populate your feed. Let's go on and create the feed routing. So now we're going to make the API routing for the feed. So you can go ahead and create a new file called feed inside your API folder, and then and now I'm gonna just plop the code in for this API routing here. You can grab this from the written tutorial, and it will just make your life a lot easier. In this part, we're finally making use of the Pinata SDK, so I'm very excited to go through this. Cool, now let's look at the routing for the feed. So if you remember our little Pinata secret, that we add metadata to each of our files, and then we filter through that metadata for Farcaster specific videos. As you can see in this metadata object here, we have to make sure that the value is true for whether it is a Farcaster video. Alternatively, there were the options of pulling data directly from Farcaster or using a community indexer. We are nearly there with our final API endpoint, so I want you to go ahead and navigate back into the API folder, create a file called upload. So this is where the real magic happens. I'm going to go ahead and paste the code right in there. You can get this again from the written tutorial. So a lot of these libraries you will have seen before. Obviously we have the Pinata SDK in here. We also have the Farcaster SDK. So let's scroll all the way down to this function called handler. This is our post request. This API endpoint essentially checks to see if we have an authenticated user to begin with. So down here we have const API client. We are creating a new instance of the Merkle API client. And firstmost, we are checking to see if there is a current logged in user. If you have seen this before, yes, it was in our authentication API endpoint as well. And once that's all done, we get the final response. And then we move on to creating a string that can be used in the cast. In the Farcaster world, a post is a cast. And lastly, we have the final IPFS hash that is sent back to the client. We're nearly there, so now might be a good time to go take a stretch and get ready for the last leg of this tutorial.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good stretch. Let's go straight to our header component. We have a few loose ends to tie, so if you navigate to header, you can see that the handle record function is currently empty. So what we're going to do is we're going to go straight to the written tutorial, copy that code, and replace this empty function with this. So the handle record function, as you can see, is quite a meaty function. There's a few bits in there, so we're not going to go step by step through it, but in a nutshell, this function creates a recording from our video feed. So it turns it into a file so that we can eventually store it onto IPFS. If you're curious about this media recorder API that's used, you can go to the link in the video description and read a little bit more about it.
So a few things I do want to point out is that if you can see here, it sets a state variable saying that it is currently recording. So it sets set recording to true, and then it will count down with our 6-second timer. And once that timer is done, it creates a video file that can be previewed. And then moving on, if you go down to the body of our header component, you can see that we have 2 video elements. One will show the preview, and with this preview, so once we press the record button, we'll want to show the time instead of the record button itself. But in order for us to do that, we're going to have to add yet another hook. So if you scroll up all the way to the top and find the first use effect hook, underneath that, we're going to add another one. We're going to make it react to the time and recording state variables. And what this is going to do is it's going to set the set timeout function to reduce the function by a second. So if we go set time -1, go down here, then let's add time recording. And then let's go ahead and change the record button itself. So just change it to this. And now that should all be linked up.
Okay, so just before we render the first preview, I am quickly going to check over the directory. And as you can see here, let me just move my camera. But in the upload API routing, you can see that there's an error. So for some reason, this is underlined as red. Let's see what it recommends for us. Okay, let's have a try at this. So if I go here, okay, hopefully that's fixed. Boom. We're now going to go ahead and tie up a few more loose ends in our header component. So if you can see here, our handle upload function is currently empty. You can go ahead and copy paste the code from the tutorial in like so. And the first thing I want to point out is that it is taking this blob data from the video that we just recorded, and then it is sending it to our upload API endpoint. The next thing we're doing is we're taking the token created from our Farcaster authentication process. It should already be in local storage, and then it passes it through the server so that it creates our post or cast. And then once that cast is uploaded, we will load the post and then close the recording modal. After that, we want to go down to the post video and cancel buttons and replace it with this. Great. So once the video is uploading, we need to connect a function that will eventually load the post. So we need to complete this load post function, and this lives in the index file. So everything in here was just scaffolding. You can go ahead and copy paste the code from the written tutorial straight into here, and then I will walk through it. So firstly, a brief overview of what this index page is doing. We want to, 1, retrieve all of our posts. Number 2, we want to store the responses. And then lastly, we want to pass the posts, plural, into our feed component that we have here. And so in order to grab the post, we're using Axios. To store the posts, you can see we are using a useState hook. And then lastly, we are passing the posts state variable to our feed. One thing you'll notice is this get static props. The benefit of this is that when you load the page, all the posts load at once. And then lastly, the component that we're going to work on is the feed. So I've actually already gone and plugged in all the code. You can find this in the technical blog. But essentially, this is what is going to show all of our recorded videos and complete our video app. Okay, so we should be in good shape to go ahead and preview the app as it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and run it. Let's go. And okay, so I've already got localhost 3000 up. Let me just show you the whole process of sort of connecting my wallet. Okay, so as I'm using Rainbow on my mobile, I am going to go with Wallet Connect. Scanny scan. And it just triggered a message for me to connect my wallet. So that's connected. And then if I go to record, I'll get yet another signing message. Oops. Allow, allow. And there's two of me. So this is recording right now. After that, I should be able to see myself, which is great. And it should have also recorded my voice. And let's upload it. Just gonna, there we are. So in an ideal world, we would have styled everything to look nice and so that this is kind of in the middle, but as you can see, well, I posted a whole lot of other things before, but as you can see, this is all there, the functionality is there, and yeah. I want to finish up with a few closing remarks. So now we should have a fully functional sort of Vine clone on the Farcaster protocol. Firstly, I want to point out that we are using a public IPFS gateway with Pinata. So you're most likely experiencing some latency, especially in terms of streaming. So if you want to really upgrade that user experience, you can go ahead and sign up for a paid plan and get your own dedicated gateway with Pinata. Another thing you could do is you could add lazy loading to load more posts, and you can do this using the offset filter. The third thing is you could increase browser compatibility. So if you remember, we are only making this app to be compatible with Chrome with the extension of WebM. But if you wanted to extend this to different browsers like Safari, you can do that by adding MP4 as well. The last thing, you could potentially improve the UI. Obviously, it can't get prettier than it is now, but if you wanted to have some fun with it, please feel free to go ahead and play around. And some other links that I want to plug into here, I highly recommend you go check out the original GitHub repo if you need some help or just want to study the code a little closer. And if you have some free time and are really curious about the world of video on Farcaster, go check out Absorb at getabsorb.com. That was actually the inspiration for this tutorial, so it's actually quite fun to have a look at what's going on in there. And lastly, we want to see what you're building. So if you completed this tutorial and you're keen to share it with the world or just proud about how far you've come, then please share with us on either our Discord channel, tag us on Twitter, or just give us a shout out in the comment section on this video.
So there we have it. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and had a lot of fun building your first Vine clone on Farcaster protocol. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure to subscribe to the Pinata channel. We're always building and we love to share with our community. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section below or jump into our Discord. Our lovely community managers are always going to be there to help you. Happy pinning, everyone!